Good evening, everybody, and welcome to this edition of Crunch Time here on ASTV Productions. I'm Joe Hamilton, along with my buddy Scott Tobin. Scott, how you doing, man?
I'm good, Joe, man. How are you?
I'm doing very good. It was another beautiful day, and I don't think we're going to be seeing a lot of rain. It turned cloudy late, but I will say this. It was an absolutely gorgeous day. It got up into the 70s again today. I know I talk weather a lot on this, but when it comes to baseball coming up, you always pay attention to the weather because you could have a lot of issues if it isn't perfect.
Yeah, and, we're going to get a little cold snap coming in tonight the next couple of days. It's only supposed to be around 50 in St. Louis, but have you seen the weather for Thursday in Cincinnati for the Cardinal opener?
No.
It's supposed to be sunny, but at first pitch, it's only supposed to be 36 degrees.
Wow. It is what it is, Scott. Usually in these times, you usually see some weird temperature swings no matter where you go, unless you're in California or maybe Florida, because they're always going to be warm. But yeah, that's nuts, Scott. I mean, they'll probably have, they usually wore those neck gaiters anyway last year to kind of, or at least warm around their necks. Now you're going to see those full face shields. You ever wore those, Scott?
I have. Well, and I'm sure you will see that because imagine not only is it going to be 36 degrees, but imagine coming from South Florida for the last 8 weeks and then jumping into 36 degrees and playing baseball. Don't expect a whole lot of offense in that game on Thursday because I don't know if you've ever hit.
Go ahead.
I don't know if you've ever hit a baseball when it's cold, but that does not feel good. Especially if you get jammed, man. Your hands sting. It hurts. So, usually on really cold days like that, there's not a whole lot of offense going on, especially in an early game like this where the pitchers are usually still a little bit ahead of the hitters the first week of the season. So don't expect a whole lot of offense on Thursday. It is supposed to warm up in Cincinnati over the weekend, though. Saturday and Sunday, both days, it's supposed to be in the 70s in Cincinnati. So that'll be a whole lot better for them.
It will be, that's for sure. And I hate to see Fox Sports go, man. That's going to be a change, isn't it?
It will be. I don't think there'll be a whole lot of a change at first. I think they're going to kind of gradually move into it. So I don't think you'll notice a whole lot of difference initially, other than the fact that it's Bally's Sports now. But as far as, post-game, pre-game, the broadcast themselves, I don't think you'll see very much difference, at least in the initial stages.
Well, and I know there's going to be like a betting scenario. They're trying to bring betting into this. And I know in Missouri it's not legal yet, so that's going to be tough. It's legal, but it's not – sports betting isn't legal, I should say.
Yeah, and it's not going to start right away. I mean, that's not something that's going to be part of it from the beginning. They're going to gradually ease that in. So it may be a while before you see the betting stuff even pop up.
It may be a while, that's for sure. So the Final Four is almost set in Gonzaga and USC. You thought this game was going to be a good game, and not a lot of people thought it was going to be a good game. Well, Gonzaga absolutely murders USC. Talk about this game, Scott. I know you didn't get to see much, but what you saw, it was a mismatch, at least in my mind, it was a mismatch from the start.
I mean, USC was a 6th seed. Gonzaga is undefeated. They're the best team in the country. A lot of people thought USC may give them a little run just because USC had been so hot. They were one of the other hottest teams in the country coming into this game, and we saw them totally blow out Kansas a week or so ago. So I did think it was going to be a little bit closer. Gonzaga got off to a really good start in that first half. Shot lights out. USC got off to a slow start. Second half, it kind of switched. Gonzaga cooled off quite a bit from the floor, and USC heated up a little bit, but the lead was just too big. And that Gonzaga team, they're 30-0 yet, 30-0 now. They haven't lost. They've had 20 games this year, Joe, where they've beaten their team by double digits. That's the most ever that a team's done that. So, I mean, that's impressive. They've got a really good ball club. That game, if they play, whoever they play in this next round will be, or next round, whoever they play on Saturday in the Final Four, it will be interesting, whether it's Michigan or UCLA. I definitely think Michigan will give them a game. UCLA has been really hot too, so it's possible. But Gonzaga is definitely the favorite, and they're the favorite for a reason. But it's not going to be easy these next two games for them.
You talk about both of these two teams giving Gonzaga a game. How do you give Gonzaga a game? What is the thing you have to do?
You just have to play good fundamental basketball. It's something USC didn't do really well early, and you have to get off to a fast start. You can't get down 10 or 12 points early to them. Michigan, I think, will really give them a good game because of Michigan's length. They're good rebounders, especially offensive rebounding. So I think their length will help them a little bit, and they're super talented. So I think if Michigan beats UCLA tonight, which won't be easy, UCLA is going to give Michigan a game, I think. But I think Michigan-Gonzaga would be a really good matchup. And then, if they advance past that, either one of those teams, whoever wins the other game, Baylor and Houston, both of those teams extremely long, extremely athletic, really good rebounding teams. So it's not going to be an easy road for Gonzaga, but they will be the favorite in both of those games if they get to, well, definitely on Saturday, and then if they get to the championship game on Monday.
Is Gonzaga one of those teams that is an overall number one that can win this tournament? Because they just wiped the floor with USC. Not every team – there are better teams in USC. Not saying USC is bad because they made the tournament. You got to be –
sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Like I just said, Gonzaga is 30-0, and they've beaten 20 of their 30 opponents by double digits. So, yeah, I mean, nobody's really played them tough.
Holy cow. Is it a strength of schedule thing, Scott, in your mind?
No.
I mean
no, they're that good. They're that good. They're going to be tough for anybody to match up with.
So you talked about the other matchup, UCLA and Michigan, and what's the key? What are the few keys in this game?
Again, for UCLA, they just have to play really good basketball. They've got to keep their starters on the floor, not get into foul trouble. And, they can give Michigan a fight. For Michigan, they just need to play their game. Michigan, again, is really good. There's a reason why they're the number one seed. And for most of the year, I mean, Illinois did beat them, down the stretch. But for most of the year, Michigan was looked at as the best team in that Big Ten conference. And there's a reason for that. They've got a really good team. They've got a really good 5 starters. Their bench is deep, and they have a great coach in Juwan Howard, the Michigan legend, like we talked about the other night.
Yeah, that's awesome, and it's getting down to games that you'll want to watch. That's for sure. Get a cold beverage, maybe order some wings, sit there, watch some awesome basketball because it's going to be fun. Safe to say, though, Scott, going back to this game between USC and Gonzaga, it's safe to say this is the first real blowout in this tournament.
No, I mean there have been we've seen games that have been worse than that. USC beat Kansas by like 28. We've seen other games that have been big blowouts. Not every game has been close. So while it was a big win, there have been games that have been decided by definitely bigger deficits than that one.
Yep. So I hope we see 2 good basketball games. Are you shocked, Scott, that they're playing in a big stadium like Lucas Oil Stadium? I mean, what are they doing with the other side? I know they can't use the whole stadium. So how's the other side? Just no one cares about it?
And they always play the Final Four. The Final Four and the championship game are always in big football stadiums, or the biggest stadium you can find. They're never in small fields. They're playing the whole length of the court. I mean, there is a practice court on the other side of the gym, but for the most part, they're using the whole field. I mean, the whole stadium floor.
Yeah, and it's awesome to watch, Scott, and it's awesome to see fans in the stands too. I mean, they have to have masks on and everything else, but it's great to see that we're finally getting fans in the stands and we're not having any issues with it.
So far, it's been good. And it's a good sign. Like we talked about, baseball is really going to start opening up a little bit more. And the NFL announced today that they expect to have full capacity by the time the season starts in September. So that's another good sign. Go ahead.
What I was saying, going on that, Scott, do you think that was a little premature by Roger Goodell? Or do you think that, if this country isn't in better shape by then, there's something really wrong?
there's something really wrong if we're not in better shape by September. I mean, hopefully, baseball stadiums are pretty much everybody in baseball is hoping to have full capacity by June or July. So, yeah, I don't think September is a stretch to say that you hope to have full capacity in a football stadium by then. So, unless something really weird happens, we should be good.
Well, what about hockey rinks? Because it's only 20,000 seats in most rinks, and they're kind of compounded together. Do you think it'll take a little longer for the NHL?
I would hope by the start of next season you'll be able to have full capacity.
I would hope so too. So, Scott, before we go to break, talk about what we're going to talk about in our next segment.
In the next segment, we're going to start talking a little bit of baseball again. Opening day is Thursday, so we're going to take a look at the National League and American League Western divisions tonight.
So be sure to not turn that dial and watch us right when you come back here on Crunch Time. Welcome back to Crunch Time here on ASTV Productions. Joe alongside Scott. Major League Baseball is coming back, and it's coming back in a big way. I'm excited for a 162-game season. Fans in the stands, obviously. Major League Baseball has been coming out with some promos. I don't know if you saw this, Scott, on the Major League Baseball Facebook page. Their promos that they're putting together are pretty darn sweet.
Yeah, they are. They are. Everybody's trying to get fans excited, get everybody excited for the start of the season. It's that time. So, like I said last night, let's get it going. Real quick, before we get into the West, did you happen to see the pictures of Jack Flaherty's spikes?
Yeah, and those are sweet. I mean, I'm telling you, those things are something that, I questioned Jack Flaherty if he was upset at the organization many times with the arbitration and everything else. I know now that it's just the system that he's upset with, because you don't roll out in cleats like that if you don't like the organization you're playing for. I mean, that's unbelievable. I wonder how long those took to make.
I don't know, and let's tell people what they are.
I forgot all the guys on those cleats. Scott, so go ahead.
It's Lou Brock and Bob Gibson. They're tributes and rest in peace tributes. One shoe's got pictures of Brock, one shoe's got pictures of Gibson.
That's awesome, man. I mean, Major League Baseball players are, creative creatures, really. I mean, you see a lot of guys wearing different color cleats, different design cleats. You think that's good for the game, Scott? Because I do.
Yeah, it lets them show their personality. There's still a question of whether Flaherty will actually wear those. A lot of people think he thinks he's going to try to wear them on opening day, but sometimes Major League Baseball still is a little bit stingy on what they let guys do. So we'll see if he's actually able to wear those in a game. But they're awesome. They're an awesome design, whether he gets to wear them or not.
They are an awesome design, and I hope he gets to wear them. I mean, I don't want Rob Manfred to pull a Roger Goodell. I think there were a couple cases in the NFL of that, right, Scott? And Roger Goodell stepped in and said, no, you can't wear those.
Yeah, well, it happened in baseball last year. Trevor Bauer had the Free Joe Kelly spikes that they would not let him wear in a game.
Wow. Just let the players be themselves, man. But let's get into the West divisions. Did we say we'd start with the American League tonight?
We did. Yep, we're going to start with the American League West.
I'm going to go in a different order than I did on the podcast. I actually want to start in Oakland because this team somehow is always good, no matter the lack of known talent on the roster. I mean, yes, they have a lot of talent, and these guys are starting to be known, Matt Chapman and Matt Olson on the corners. But you lose Marcus Semien, you lose Chris Davis. How much of losses will those two guys be for this team?
Well, you lost Marcus Semien to free agency, so you took Chris Davis, a guy who's been banged up the last couple of years and hasn't been as productive as he was in the past, and you send him to Texas for Elvis Andrews, who's a shortstop that's going to replace Semien, is a better defensive shortstop than Semien. You're not going to get quite as much offense, but he's going to shore up your defense. So I think they're just fine, honestly.
They're just fine. What about their pitching, Scott? I mean, you got Sean Manaea, pretty young pitching staff. They were in the playoffs last year. They should be primed to make a playoff run this year. Talk about their pitching.
Yeah, like you said, Sean Manaea is going to be in that rotation. He's actually looking like he's probably going to be the number 3. Chris Bassett's going to be their number 1 opening starter. And then Jesus Luzardo is going to be their number 2 starter. Frankie Montez is your 4, and Mike Fiers, who they brought back to Oakland, is your 5th starter. So they've got a decent rotation, and then they shored up their bullpen. They went out and signed the former Cardinal Trevor Rosenthal to be their closer, so I like their bullpen. You talked about the 2 big pieces of their offense in Matt Chapman and Matt Olson. I think Stephen Piscotty will have another bounce-back year. He had some injuries last year that slowed him down a little bit, but I think Piscotty will be healthy, and that should help. And then a guy that has been everywhere, Mitch Moreland, has hit everywhere he's been, and he's going to be the DH in Oakland. And I think his bat will play. I think he will help to that offense as well.
What do you think of a guy like Ramon Laureano? I mean, great center fielder defensively, can also hit. What do you think of Laureano?
He's good. He's going to be their leadoff guy. Again, a guy that can hit a little bit, play good defense, has good speed. So he's kind of the table setter for this team. So I think that'll be interesting. And they brought Jed Lowry back as well to play second base. And, Lowry had some great years in Oakland and then left and has been injured the last couple of years, but he's come back to Oakland. So it'll be interesting to see if he can bounce back and find that form of a couple of years ago.
Yeah, that will be interesting if he can. I mean, he's a professional hitter, so I think he can regain that form that he had. So let's go over to Texas because, again, like I talked about on the podcast, Scott, this team is stuck between a rock and a hard place. They're trying to do the thing that is very hard to do, is rebuild, but yet stay competitive. This is not going to be good for Texas. Their number 1's going to be Kyle Gibson, a friend of the show. And, I mean, at this point, no offense to Kyle, like you said, he's not a number 1 starter anymore. And outside of that, their pitching doesn't excite me either.
No, I mean, their number 2 guy, they're going to try to rehab and hope that Mike Fulton-Navich can find his form from a couple of years ago in Atlanta. But, yeah, Jordan Lyles is in that rotation, Dane Dunning, Colby Allard. So we'll see how that rotation stacks up. And then their lineup, like you said, they've got some guys in the middle of the lineup that are going to hit a lot of home runs. Joey Gallo, David Dahl, and then Chris Davis, like we just talked about, they came over from Oakland. They can hit a lot of home runs, but they all 3 strike out a lot. So it'll be interesting how that offense works. And then just last night, they released Rougned Odor. So they're letting some of their young players play second base. And they're going to eat $27 million of Odor's contract. And now he's pretty much going to be – they have a week to trade him or release him. Nobody's going to pick him up and take that contract. So he's going to be a free agent basically. And any other team can sign him for a prorated league minimum at any point. And, he's still – like I said, he's still going to pocket that $27 million on top of that.
So maybe the Cardinals?
I don't know. I kind of posed that question last night, but the more I read about Odor, his defense has really fallen off. He's had a lot of problems. His strikeout rate's gone way, way up. His batting average has gone down. So I don't know. I mean, maybe if something happens with the Cardinals in the next couple of weeks and they need a backup infielder, maybe they took a look at it, but I'm not so sure.
I'm not so sure either. I mean, we were talking about him like when this happened, Scott, over the group chat, and you really didn't have much good to say about him, but you did pose the question, which made me think maybe Scott's changing his mind. But yeah, I don't think it happens, and I don't think the Cardinals need a second baseman in my mind, but it's not him. That's let's get one thing for sure. So let's go to
time out. You love Tommy Edmond. Why do they need a second baseman?
Scott, how many times have I said it, though? I've said it to you that he's not an everyday player. I've said it even. I like Tommy Edmond as a utility guy, not an everyday player. I've said this to you. And you know I've said this to you.
Tommy Edmond's going to be the second baseman this year.
And that's sad. That's why I said the Cardinals need a second baseman. Because by the All-Star break, maybe Tommy Edmond does have a great start to the season. But we'll get to that in a little bit. We'll talk more Cardinal baseball in a second. But let's go to Houston first. The Houston Astros are missing a couple of key guys in their rotation. Their bats are you still have Jose Altuve and you still have Carlos Correa, but you did lose George Springer, which in my mind was the heart and soul of that team, no matter what anyone wants to say about Altuve. Maybe they split it. But, Scott, what do you think about Houston? What kind of team are they going to have this year?
They've still got offense. Like you said, they've got Altuve, Correa, Michael Brantley. Alex Bregman's going to miss a little bit of time, but he'll be back. They still have Yuli Gurriel. They still have Yordan Alvarez. So they've got a lot of bats in that lineup. They're going to score runs. The big question is going to be their pitching. Justin Verlander's gone all year, and Framber Valdez, their young stud, is hurt. He's probably going to miss the whole season. So you're missing your top two pitchers. Zach Greinke's got to slide into that number one spot then. You got to ask Lance McCullers to step up and not be a 4 or 5, but be either your 2 or your 3. So they're putting a lot of pressure on that rotation now, and I think the Astros take a little step back.
Scott, there's one guy I want to ask you about in that rotation. It's Jose Urquidy. He showed he can pitch some big innings.
Yeah, again, though, there's going to be a lot of pressure on him, and he's really young. He's going to have to step up and take a bigger role because you're missing your top two guys all year. So it'll be interesting to see how he does with that pressure on him. And like we talked about last night, a lot of times those young guys in their second year or third year, they take a little step back before they get going again. So we'll see how it works out for them.
Moving to Los Angeles and the Angels, and this team has a lot of firepower. Pujols, Upton, Trout, and Rendon. I could name a few more. The thing is, they don't have any pitching, Scott.
No, they don't. We've talked about it. They're going to try to do the two-way thing again with Shohei Ohtani. He's going to be their DH basically and then pitch. And they're saying that he's going to pitch a lot. So we'll see how that works out. The last couple of years he's been injury-prone. So we'll see if Ohtani works out the way they hope he does. Otherwise, that rotation, you got Dylan Bundy and Andrew Heaney. They did go get Jose Quintana from the Cubs. And then you got Alex Cobb. And, that rotation, there's a lot of questions there. But, that's been the Angels' problem for the last 10 years. They've had lineups that can hit. They just haven't had the pitching. So we'll see how that plays out. They did shore up the back of their bullpen when they made the trade with the Reds to get the Reds closer to shore up their bullpen.
I think that's a bad move by the Reds, but we'll get to that with the Central tomorrow. I don't know what the Angels are doing, so I'm just going to leave it right there. We know what Seattle's doing. They have a few young guys in their lineup, and they do have a pitcher or two, but they're kind of at a crossroads here. Are they rebuilding still, Scott, or what? It doesn't seem like they're building toward anything. That's my whole point.
They've got a lot of young prospects. We'll see. There's a lot of turmoil in that Mariners organization after everything that they went through this spring with, the comments that were made and people getting fired and all of that stuff. We're not going to dredge that back up again, but there's a lot of stuff going on there. But they do have some good young players, and they've got a guy like Mitch Haniger who is coming off a health issue, but he was on the verge of being a big star before that happened. You still got a guy like Kyle Seager that can still do some good things. And then the top of their rotation with Marco Gonzalez and James Paxton, they're solid pitchers. Gonzalez has turned into a really good pitcher. So they've got some pieces, but, if they do really poorly, if they're really in bad shape at the trade deadline, do they move those pieces for Again, young prospects because they know it's still going to be a few years before they're able to compete. We'll just have to see, but it's probably not going to be a great year up in the Northwest for the Mariners and their fans.
So I kind of need to bring this up because it is kind of a Seattle thing per se. I mean, King Felix just opted out of his minor league contract with the Orioles. If you're in the same, I think it wouldn't take much to make that Orioles rotation, right? I mean, look at Matt Harvey. Matt Harvey is in that Orioles rotation, and he had a 5 ERA in spring. Why are you? Go ahead, Scott.
No, what were you going to say?
Why, Scott? Why wouldn't he just take the free spot, see if he can regain his old form? I mean, he's a little bit older, so not maybe his old form, but maybe he could get back to somewhat of what he used to be. You know what I mean? I don't know why he would opt out. This just makes no sense.
He hurt his elbow last week and wasn't going to be able, and probably wasn't going to make the roster because of that. He pitched pretty well before he hurt his elbow, but he hurt his elbow and wasn't going to make the major league roster.
So you opt out. So what's next for Felix Hernandez?
No idea. He's not even going to try to sign a contract before the start of the season. So I guess we'll have to see if he gets healthy again. And then, if a team is desperate, maybe they reach out and take a shot. With all the injuries that Felix has had the last couple of years, you hate to say it, but his career may be over.
I think so too. So how do you have this division shaping up, Scott?
I don't have anybody in this division winning over 90 games. I have Oakland winning it with 89 games. I have Houston coming in second, the Angels third, the Rangers fourth, and then the Mariners bringing up the rear.
If I'm wrong with how I worded it Monday, Scott, I kind of had a change of heart here. I'm gonna go Oakland, Houston, LA, Seattle, then Texas.
Okay. That's interesting. Okay.
Why is it interesting? We got time. Why?
I'm just surprised you changed because when we did the podcast the other day, you were talking about how the Astros, you didn't think they had any real competition in this division.
And I thought about it. I'm like, Oakland's still Oakland, man.
Okay.
And I got time to change it because, again, season hasn't started yet. So.
Yeah, no, you're fine.
I'm fine. But do you have any problems with how the teams were put together? Like fourth and fifth, are you shocked that Seattle's over Texas?
I am. Yeah, I'm surprised. But again, that's your prerogative. That's what you think. So there's nothing wrong with it.
Let's go over to the National League West, and this is going to be a very top-heavy division. Let's start with a team everyone wants to talk about, Scott, and that is the San Francisco Giants. This is a team managed by Gabe Kapler, and they haven't been very good lately. They've been rebuilding, Scott, and that's what I want to ask you about first. What do you think? How do you think their rebuild's gone to this point?
With their major league ball club, not very good. Because you look at that lineup and it's full of old guys. Where is the rebuild when you look at the Giants lineup? Tommy LaStella, old. Alex Dickerson, not real young. Buster Posey, old. Brandon Belt, old. Brandon Crawford, old. There's nobody really young. Mike Yastrzemski, you can say is a prospect, but he's like 28 already. So there's no real young youth in that lineup to get real excited about. And then kind of the same way with their rotation. Kevin Gausman's okay, but then, Alex Wood, Johnny Cueto, Anthony DeSclafani, none of those guys are those are older guys that have bounced around. Aaron Sanchez has some upside, but I don't look at that team and see anything that excites me in their lineup or their rotation. Do you?
You're forgetting about one key young guy, Scott, and that's their top catching prospect in Joey Bart. So that could be a piece that could be very good for the San Francisco Giants.
Okay, but where does he play? Because you still have Brandon Belt.
Posey, but you put Posey. Yeah, I get your point.
You're playing Brandon.
He's more of a first baseman, but he's not going to play there because you got Brandon Belt.
And they both still have multi-years on their contract, and they're both making a ton of money. So the Giants aren't going to, the Giants are stuck.
So is it a possibility that a guy like Joey Bart gets traded?
I mean, he's probably their future, but, it may be another year or two before you see him up here.
Yeah, okay. That's the San Francisco Giants in a nutshell. Let's go over to Arizona, because the Arizona Diamondbacks, to me, are a team that you think they're going to struggle, and they end up playing well. They have an aging ace. Well, I still call him an ace, Scott, because he was for so many years in San Francisco, and that's Madison Bumgarner. I like their parts of their hitting core. Ketel Marte, I've always liked him. Scott, what do you think about this Arizona squad?
I think they're going to be all right. I mean, it's going to come down to their pitching. Like you said, can Madison Bumgarner find some of that Giants Madison Bumgarner? If he does, that's going to help. And if Luke Weaver can have a good year, we've seen him be up and down in his career where 1 year's good, 1 year's not so good. If he can find it and be solid for a whole year, that'll solidify that rotation. And then I like their lineup, some of it. Like you said, I like Marte. I like Christian Walker, their first baseman. Carson Kelly showed some good stuff last year. I like their shortstop, Nick Ahmed. So I think they're going to be okay. I mean, the top of that division is going to be hard to crack, but I think Arizona will be solid and won't be an easy team to play.
Over 500 with this team?
Yes.
Okay. Let's go over to Colorado, and this is easily going to be, I'm just going to put it out there now, the last place team in a division, because you lose Arenado, you have Trevor Story, and you're going to end up trading him by the deadline. They don't have much in terms of pitching. They don't have much of you're always going to have an offense there. But what's up with Colorado right now?
Will they trade Trevor Story by the deadline? I don't know. I mean, a lot of people think they will, but I'm not 100% sure that they will do that. They've got Charlie Blackmon too. I mean, if I was them, I would move both of those guys and try to get prospects and rebuild. But we saw what they got in the return for Arenado. So if you're a Rockies fan, are you confident that this GM and ownership group can trade those guys and get building block pieces to rebuild this team? I wouldn't be.
I mean, you see all the time. I've been looking at their Facebook page, and all it is fire British and sell the team Momford. It's really bad in Colorado right now. And you know what? I'd be pissed off if I were a Rockies fan too, Scott. Just think. I mean, we talked about it way earlier on this show that the Rockies screwed themselves, man. I mean, they have no one to blame but themselves if fans leave that organization. I mean, yes, you're still going to have your diehard fans, but this is going to scare some of the fans away.
Yeah, it will. It will. But, fans come back. So we'll see what happens. In baseball's a weird sport. You never know. Maybe these guys have a great year. Maybe some of these pitchers, maybe a John Gray or a Marquez or a Freeland, maybe these guys have great years and maybe the Rockies are better than we think. You just never know. If they don't look great on paper, but that's why they play the games. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, we will see what happens. Now let's go to the top of this division, and I want to start with the San Diego Padres. This was a trendy team coming out of the offseason, making all the moves they did, and signing Fernando Tatis Jr. to that astronomical contract extension. He gets hurt. Scott, first of all, I want to ask you, what's his status for opening day?
Still questionable. They're hoping he's going to be ready to play, but if not, he should be ready in a few days. It's nothing real serious.
Nothing real serious. I mean, it's good to take precaution with the amount of money you just gave him, so I understand that. You have Machado, you have Hosmer, and that's one thing, Scott. Hosmer is not talked about. I don't understand why. Hosmer was easily the biggest name in Kansas City that led them to that World Series in 2015, and yet no one really talks about him there.
Well, again, because you have Fernando Tatis and Manny Machado, so those guys are going to get most of the pub. Eric Hosmer is a really solid player. We talked about this last night or yesterday, I guess, on the podcast. that everybody was shocked when Hosmer took the money and went to San Diego a few years ago. He was kind of the first piece to what we're seeing right now, because you went and got Hosmer. Then the following year they signed Matty. And then, Fernando Tatis the year after that came up and broke out. You got a guy like Will Myers as well. Tommy Pham's a decent piece if he ever stays healthy, which he's never able to do for a full season.
Yeah, and you're forgetting about Cronenworth too.
I just hadn't gotten there yet. But yeah, he's a solid player. We'll see how much he plays. But yeah, I mean, they have a solid lineup. And, they have names in their rotation. We talked about this in the podcast too. Islam, he's definitely talented, but can he stay healthy? Which Hugh Darvish do they get? Do they get the one who won the Cy Young last year, or the one that was really bad in Chicago for the 2 years before that? And I even have questions about Blake Snell, because, you look what he did in Tampa. Yeah, he was good, but he never pitched more than 4 or 5 innings. So you wonder, is his arm able to do that? And if you try to stretch him out, does he get hurt? It's just going to be really interesting to see how this pitching staff holds up. Plus, I have questions about their bullpen. So, San Diego is a trendy team. They're going to score a ton of runs. If their pitching's healthy and lives up to the names on the back of those jerseys, they're going to be really good. If not, they're going to have a bunch of issues.
They've done this once before, Scott, going out and making the big splashes, and it didn't work for them last time. Hopefully, second time's the charm here, I guess, for San Diego's sake. Let's go to Los Angeles. The Dodgers, the reigning World Series champions, about to defend their crown. Pretty much the same team from last year, Scott. They really didn't add much other than signing Mookie Betts during the season last year to that big-time contract extension. Are the Los Angeles Dodgers in danger, though, of losing the division for the first time in, 11 years, is it?
No, because they did make a big move. They went out and got Trevor Bauer.
My bad.
They went and got Trevor Bauer, and David Price is coming back. So they've added 2 huge pieces to their rotation.
Scott, the thing is, the Bauer thing I understand. The David Price conversation, he needs to show me a little bit more. He really does. David Price, as of right now, he's in your bullpen. That was announced today. So
you got to remember, David Price was really good. The Red Sox don't win that last World Series a couple of years ago if it's not for David Price. He was the key to that team. And even if he's in their bullpen, he's a left-handed pitcher out of that bullpen that strengthens a kind of shaky bullpen. So I think the Dodgers are going to probably win that division again. They're really good. Everybody's calling them the best team in baseball. A lot of people are handing them the World Series. I'm not going to go that far, but I think the Dodgers will be really good.
Dodgers will be really good, and that's going to be a fun season series to watch, Scott. Even though they're not your teams per se, will you still watch Dodgers Padres if it's like every time it's on? That's must-see TV for me.
Yeah, I'll watch it. I'm a baseball fan, so I'll watch a lot of baseball. But, yeah, I will watch.
So how do you have this division? I know your first 2 teams, Scott, but let's just skip the first 2 teams because I think you already said the Dodgers have won this division. Who are your bottom 3?
I've got the D-backs, the Giants, and the Rockies.
I have the same 3 teams. Am I right there, Scott? I think I had the same. I think this is one we agreed on.
Yeah, we did. I think that'll play out. Although, the Giants and Rockies could very easily flip-flop, and the Giants could be the worst team in that division. Because, again, you can see the Giants, if they start to struggle and you get into the trade deadline and Kevin Gausman and Johnny Cueto are pitching halfway decent, both of those guys could get traded for something. So it's possible you tear that rotation down in San Francisco. So we'll see. But, yeah, I think those 2 teams are 4-5. I just am not 100% sure which way they will finish.
Yeah, I think so too, Scott. So we're going to keep the baseball conversation going. Right after the break, we're going to be talking about the St. Louis Cardinals. And basically, we're going to be talking about their infield core. We're going to talk about that first. Next, here on Crunch Time.
Theo here on ASTV. Check out my show Tuesdays and Thursdays, 6 p.m. On the Ice. Me and my guests break down all of the hottest and latest topics surrounding the world of hockey.
Welcome back to Crunch Time here on ASTV Productions. As you saw, that is On the Ice. My buddy Theo, he's done so well on his show, as well as coming on here and filling in when he's had to. So be sure to go check that show out. Scott, let's get into some Cardinal baseball, because there's something that I've wanted to get into, and it's really the infield. There are two spots in the infield I'm really worried about. Paul DeJong started hitting in spring training, like toward the end of spring training, but it is spring training. What are you expecting out of Paul DeJong this year?
A really good year.
What is a really good year for Paul DeJong?
I think he hits somewhere between 255 and 270, which you can totally live with that batting average if he gives you the power. I think he's somewhere in that range with somewhere between 25 and 30 home runs, somewhere between 85, 90 RBIs, and Gold Glove caliber shortstop defense.
Yeah, I'd love to see that out of Paul DeJong, because I think this is a make or break year for DeJong. I've said it before and I'll say it again, because he's had 3 or 4 years in the league now, and now you need to show a little bit more. He came up, burst onto the scene, and had 20 home runs in like a month and a half. Or wait, yeah, he was up. What was his rookie year, Scott?
His rookie year would have been 17. He came up in June. Yeah, he hit 25 home runs. He finished third in the Rookie of the Year balloting. The next year, he got off to a really good start, got hit by a pitch, broke his hand, came back, still hit 17 home runs down the stretch. The year after that, he got off to a really good start. He got worn down because he played 160 games, but he still hit 30 home runs, was an all-star, drove home 90 runs. And then last year he had COVID and struggled a little bit. So, I mean, I don't know that he needs to show a whole lot more, because he's already been in the Rookie of the Year running, he's already been in the Gold Glove running, and he's already been an all-star. So he's done a lot.
I just want to see a little bit more consistency, Scott. How many of those years he got off to a good start? But what happens after that, Scott? Granted, you're going to go through slumps. I get it. It's a major league season. Ebbs and flows of a major league season is crazy. But when he does slump, it's a hard slump, Scott.
Well, you have to remember last year that he had COVID.
Right, and I'm not just talking about last year.
Okay, so the year before that, he played basically in 160 games. So he was worn down at the end of the year because he was playing the most demanding position on the field, and they really didn't have a backup, so he was out there every day. So, yeah, he did wear down. So you have to have a backup that gives him a break every once in a while. But he's been very productive.
Who is that backup?
I would imagine it's Sosa, since he made the team.
I would think so too. And now my other question, Scott, at least on the infield, is a guy in Tommy Edmond at second base. You lose Kolton Wong, and I said I was going to bring this up tomorrow, but I'm just going to do it now. Kolton Wong's departure is going to hurt this team. I don't know how much it's going to hurt them, but it's going to hurt them.
It's going to hurt a little bit in the defensive part. I was a huge Kolton Wong fan, but I think Tommy Edmond's going to be fine because you have 3 really good defenders on that infield. You know, Goldschmidt and Arenado are as good as they come, and DeJong's one of the best defensive shortstops. I think Tommy Edmond's going to be fine at second base. I mean, he's not going to be Kolton Wong, but he's going to be a solid, above average defensive second baseman. And, you know, at least for now, he's going to be your leadoff hitter, and he looked really good in spring. You know, again, like I talked about, you don't need Tommy Edmond to hit. You know, my biggest gripe about Tommy Edmond last year, everybody talked about him, that a lot of his hits were infield hits. He wasn't really driving the ball. Well, this year you're fine with that because he's going to be your leadoff guy, and you're not looking for him to drive home runs or get extra base hits necessarily. Those infield hits and just getting on base in front of Arenado and Goldschmidt are what you want. So I think he's going to be okay, and I don't think it's going to hurt as much as some people think.
Let's talk about the rest of the infield, Scott. What has you worried? What gives you confidence?
I have no worries about their infield. I think it's one of the best, if not the best, defensive infields in the National League because, like I said, you've got an 8-time Gold Glover in Nolan Arenado. You've got a 5-time Gold Glover in Paul Goldschmidt. And Paul DeYoung's been in the Gold Glove hunt. So I have no issues with this infield. I think it's really, really strong.
Well, the one issue I would have is your backup second baseman at this point, and that would be Matt Carpenter. So that's what I meant by issue, Scott, because how long of a leash do you give Matt Carpenter at this point?
I've talked about this ad nauseum, I feel like, here lately. Matt Carpenter is going to be – it's going to be at least June. It's going to be he's going to get till at least June, if not longer. And hopefully Matt Carpenter shows something. I mean, I know everybody's frustrated and you don't want to hear it, but I definitely have no problems criticizing Matt Carpenter. But when you look at what he did at the end of spring training, and again, it's all results, but he was starting to make more contact. He was starting to barrel the ball up better. His hard hit rate had gone up. His average velocity off the bat had gone up. So he was showing some signs of things getting a little bit better towards the end of spring training. I know he only had a couple of hits, and I'm not saying, everything is great with Matt Carpenter, but, if Matt Carpenter is able to hit and you're able to get something out of him, that makes this team that much better.
Yeah, I would agree 100%. Now, since we have a little bit of time here, let's go to the outfield because this outfield is they have no experience, Scott. I mean, as of right now, there's no there's no proven commodities out there in the outfield. That worries me a little bit. And even with a guy in Harrison Bader coming back, it worries me.
I'm not that worried about it, honestly. I mean, this is what the Cardinals have been saying they were going to do for years. This is what everybody wanted. Nobody wanted Dexter Fowler here. So you have a guy in Dylan Carlson who everybody in baseball says is going to be a superstar. That's not just the Cardinals talking. Everybody's talking about Dylan Carlson being a favorite to win the Rookie of the Year. And we saw what he did in the second half of last season when he came back up and he got comfortable. He looked pretty good most of the spring. I think Dylan Carlson's going to be fine. Tyler O'Neill's made huge changes to his swing. He's hitting the ball to the opposite field. He's driving the ball. His strikeout rate's gone down, and he's a Gold Glove left fielder. He plays good defense. I'm fine there. And then right field, you're going to mix and match for a little bit. Maybe Justin Williams comes up and lights the world on fire for a couple of weeks. Think about guys that the Cardinals have put in the outfield over the years that you didn't know anything about, that they were hot for a month or so. Think of a guy like Jeremy Hazelbaker. That guy went on a tear. The Cardinals have found guys like this, and Justin Williams is a prospect. So, if hopefully Williams plays really well and becomes the right fielder. If not, hopefully he gets you through a couple of weeks until you get Bader back, and then you move Carlson back to right, or you bring Lane Thomas up if he struggles. And you have a guy like Austin Dean that you can throw out there every once in a while if you need to. Dean's played a lot of outfield in the major leagues. He's a major league player. So you do have some depth there. So I think they're going to be okay for the month or whatever until you get Bader back. So I don't really have a whole lot of worry about your outfield, honestly.
And that's funny because Mike Claiborne's even said on the show that he isn't that confident. So I don't know, man. I hope you're right, but there's a lot of questions, Scott, and you would agree with that. There's a lot of questions, but you're being optimistic, right?
There are questions, but I feel like these guys, from what I've seen from Tyler O'Neill, I think Tyler O'Neill, if he plays every day, is going to put up good numbers. And again, Dylan Carlson's one of your top outfielder prospects, one of the top prospects in baseball. So, I think left field and center field are going to be fine for now. And then, like I said, you're just going to have to mix and match in right field. But that's what you were going to kind of do anyway. It wouldn't be any different than if you had Dexter Fowler out there. So, and again, we're talking about a couple of months. So I think they'll be fine. And if I'm wrong, if they have to go get somebody, they'll make a trade at the deadline if they have to bring in a different outfielder.
For the short term, though, what is Justin Williams?
Hopefully he likes, like I just said, hopefully he shows what
my main question is, Scott, what's his skill set?
He's got great power. He hits the ball really hard. Everybody's talked about that. His exit velocity is right behind Tyler O'Neill and Goldschmidt and Arenado. He's got tons of power. He's got good speed. He's got a good throwing arm. He's got the potential. He just hasn't had a chance yet. So, we'll see. Maybe he comes up and really plays well and takes the job. If not, like I said, there are other options.
Okay. Let's say this outfield lights the world on fire and Bader's ready to come back. The Cardinals will have a tough decision. What is that decision?
I mean, Harrison Bader will definitely be on the team. And then, if all three of them are hitting really well, and I mean, you know how baseball works, the chances of all three outfielders all being hot when Harrison Bader isn't great. So, I mean, then you slide him into the mix. Whether, at first he just hits against left-handed pitching because we know he tears left-handed pitching up, and you fit him in that way until somebody struggles, and then maybe and if Bader's hot, you slide him in, and it works that way. Or if somebody's just struggling, if a Williams is really struggling and you haven't figured out that right field spot, then Bader goes back into center and you move Carlson over to right, and you have the outfield that you expected going into the season. So, there's time for this to play out, and I think they're going to be fine.
I certainly hope so, Scott. Well, before we get out of here, anything that we didn't touch on?
Real quick, in the basketball game, well, as I was going to say that, I just looked up and the score's frozen, so I'm not sure what the score is right now. But Michigan and UCLA are about 7 minutes into the first half. So it's a good basketball game. We'll see what happens there. And, tomorrow night we're going to dive into the National League Central. So I'm sure we'll argue more about the Cardinals tomorrow night.
And we'll argue about teams that will give the Cardinals a run. I think Milwaukee's built kind of in the same way the Cardinals are, but that's just in my opinion. And I like Jake or Woodruff, so Milwaukee's going to be the biggest test. But we'll talk about that tomorrow.
Yep. Anything else you want to get out there today? Oh, here's something we can talk about. I know what we can talk about. I sound really prepared for this show as I'm saying that. Talk about the players that turned down contract extensions today.
Yeah. Scott, can we start with Francisco Lindor, please?
Yeah.
Because Francisco Lindor has turned down, as of today, a 10-year, $325 million deal. And he counter offers with 12 years and $385 million. He ain't getting $385 million. No way in hell he's getting $385. So I say, Scott, he should have accepted that offer. Maybe he still has a chance to. Maybe the decline was just a media thing, but I think if he's smart, he takes that deal from the Mets.
I don't think he does. I think he signs with the Mets. I think they meet somewhere in the middle. I bet it's somewhere in the range of 350, 360.
Is it 11 years then? You say in the middle. What Probably. Do you mean? 10 years or 11?
Probably 11 years.
All right, and that would take him to his age 39 season. Man, he's a great shortstop, great fielding shortstop, good hitter. But is he worth that, Scott? I mean, is he worth superstar money?
He's a superstar.
I mean, he is, but but then again, the Dodgers just did sign Mookie Betts. So,
and there you go, right there. He wants more money than Mookie Betts got. And when you talk about the positions they play, Mookie Betts is a right fielder. Francisco Lindor is a shortstop. Which one of those positions is more valuable for a baseball team?
Shortstop.
There you go.
Okay. Who was the other guy today, Scott, that turned down an extension? I forgot. I can't believe I'm forgetting this.
This is really interesting. The Cubs and Anthony Rizzo. Rizzo's going to be a free agent. The Cubs offered him 5 years and only $70 million.
Okay. Why, if you're the Chicago Cubs, are you going to insult Anthony Rizzo like that?
Because you want him to turn it down, and then you can say, "Hey, we made Anthony Rizzo an offer. He rejected it." It tells you right there the Cubs don't really want him back.
They need somebody to. I mean, I guess they have that in Javier Baez, and they haven't even made Baez an offer yet.
No, they haven't. You got to remember the Cubs have cried poor for a year now, and they've talked about tearing this whole thing down. It's very possible that it's very possible by the trade deadline, if they don't have a great year, that's a totally different team on that field. It's very possible that Chris Bryant's gone, that Wilson Contreras is gone, that Jock Peterson's gone, that Kyle Hendricks gone at the All-Star break, or at the trade deadline, if the Cubs struggle.
All right, Scott. Let me put a little scenario in your head. The Cubs are struggling. It's July 30th. And the Cardinals come calling. And I know this is a Cardinal-Cubs scenario. I get it. Would you ask for Jock Peterson? Would the Cubs trade you Jock Peterson at that point? I've seen intra-division trades. So it's not like this is anything new, but it's rare. But in this case, I could definitely see that happening.
I cannot.
We need an outfielder.
I cannot. I don't think there's any chance that the Cubs would trade anybody to the Cardinals to help them win a division. With that rivalry, I don't see that happening in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, but it's a fan-driven rivalry, though.
To a certain extent, but all rivalries are fan-driven rivalries. It's a friendly rivalry to an extent, but at the same time, the players want to beat the other team. They know what that rivalry means and the history of it. So I do not see that trade happening. I don't see that.
That's a guy that the Cardinals probably, in my mind, should have gone after. But, and it hurt when I saw him sign with the Cubs. Were you
Sorry, go ahead.
Were you shocked, Scott? Because you did say toward the end of the offseason, you're like, Jock Peterson wouldn't be bad for this team.
Well, he wouldn't have been. And part of that was, it didn't look like the Cardinals were going to spend any money or bring in a big-name guy. So it looked like somebody like that was what they were looking for. But, again, if you get Jock Peterson, you complain about Tyler O'Neill all the time. Jock Peterson's a left-handed Tyler O'Neill. So do you want, I mean, he is. So do you want Tyler O'Neill and Jock Peterson in your same lineup?
You got a point, Scott. You got a point there. It'll be interesting to see if Frankie Lindor signs a contract before the season start. I mean, there's still a chance that there's something worked out tomorrow. So
tomorrow, yeah, it could happen tomorrow or Thursday morning.
Yeah, so pay attention to us for all the latest news. Scott, anything else before we get out of here tonight?
No, I think we're good. We'll be back tomorrow to break down the National League Central.
Thank you guys for watching tonight, and thanks as always to Scott Tobin, my trusty sidekick. But thank you for everybody watching. Be safe at home. Do the right things. We can go back to watching baseball at Busch Stadium. That's what I'd like to do. And Scott's lucky enough he gets to work at Busch Stadium. Oh, by the way, what are some of the new – have you heard anything else on Busch Stadium rules?
Everything will be coming out here in the next couple of days before opening day next Thursday. So we'll talk about it in the next day or two. All
right. Fair enough. For Scott Tobin, I'm Joe Hamilton. We will see you guys tomorrow night here on Crunch Time.